everyone and welcome back to RC Fun and Games. I am Ryan and today we are back in the 1/18 scale garage to start the upgrade series on the Traxxas Trx4M F-150 High Trail. And we are going to start by installing a better suspension to this rig. With the extra weight, it's already sitting down in the back all the time, so I thought it's time to throw some better shocks on ya. And of course, next thing will be the drivetrain, because it is not running smoothly. You would have noticed that in the last video, that I found it very difficult to get a nice smooth crawl across my backyard course. But we are going to start off with the shocks because I don't like the way it's standing at the moment, leaning backwards all the time. So let's get these shocks out of this packet and let's see exactly what I got. And I've gone for the 59mm shocks from Injora. These are the ones with the brass ends, and so far I've really enjoyed these shocks. They seem to perform really well across the rigs I've used them on, so why not use them on this build as well? Okay, so let's get these shocks filled up with some oil, and the oil I'm going to be using is the 650 CPS 51WT. The reason I'm going for this is the rig is already quite heavy with all the accessories, and once I add what I want to the aesthetics, it's going to get even heavier. So I might as well run a 51WT right from the beginning instead of changing it out halfway through the upgrade series. So let's start by taking off the spring. Just remove the collet and the spring will come off. Remove the top. As you can see, it's actually got quite a bit of oil inside this shock. Okay, and I'm going to start by emptying out this oil what's already inside the shocks because I don't want to mix the two types of oil. So let's get this oil out. Okay, so let's start filling it up. Just keep moving that shaft up and down to allow the bubbles to come out. As you'll notice, there's still some little bubbles in there. I can't catch it on camera, but just make sure you wait until all those bubbles have completely escaped, and only then do you put the cap on it. Okay, now that all the bubbles are out, I can put my cap on. And as you can see, I'm going to leave it just near the shaft. Make sure you clean off all that excess oil or else dust and dirt is just going to stick to it. Okay, one of the reasons I left my shock shaft all the way in when I closed the cap is so that the ride height on this rig is not going to be sitting up too tall. Like this, it will keep it riding quite low, keeping the center of gravity lower. As you'll notice, this always wants to pull back in, and it also pushes just basically past the lowest point. In my opinion, this is the way I like them set up. So the two front shocks are going to be set up like this. The rear, I will probably have the shaft halfway out when I close the cap to provide a little bit more height because of the extra weight in the back to keep it standing up tall. So now all we've got left to do is throw our spring back on. Okay, so as you can see, once the spring is fitted, it's got a nice dampening motion. It doesn't fully extend, but under articulation it will easily extend and compress all the way. There is no pressure on it. It's nice and smooth. I got to say that these shocks really do feel good, and in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with the quality from Injora shocks. They are awesome shocks. Okay, now that I've got this shock filled, I'm going to put the ball joints in, and then we can move on to one of the rear shocks so I can show you how I'm going to set one of those up. Okay, so let's grab one of the ball joints, and all we're going to do is throw our O-rings on there, pull it down to the bottom, and then we just need to put it through there and put the other O-ring on the other side. It's as easy as that to fit the ball joints, and repeat the process again with the top one. Okay, and it's as easy as that to get the ball joints in on these. On the plastic ones, they have some different ball joints for the bottom, but they're also just as easy to fit, but there is a difference between the two ball joints when you've got the plastic ends. Now, let's get the next shock out. I didn't mention on camera, but I did change the spring out to the hard spring. This is the soft spring. You can see the difference between the two. This one is definitely softer than this one, yeah? And the reason being is this is gonna run on this front wheel, and I'm also gonna put a hardened spring on this one, and I'm gonna run it on the rear right in the back, okay? To compensate and to eliminate a little bit more of that torque twist that these rigs have. So let's get this spring off. And let's open up the cap as well, just like on the last one. Let's drain out all the oil that's in there. This one doesn't seem to have as much oil as the last one. Okay, so let's fill it up with the 50 WT, and same process, drop at a time, extend the shaft so it can go through and bleed the system. Don't move the shaft too fast, or else you're just going to create loads of little bubbles. And as you can see, I'm going to leave this shaft halfway pulled out because I want it to ride a little bit higher than the front shocks. Once again, make sure you rub off all the excess oil that's leaked out of the little hole on the cap, which makes these really easy to assemble. Now, let's get our hardened spring put back on. And let's see how it behaves with the spring on. Everybody's got their own way of setting up their shocks, but in my opinion, this has been working great for the Traxxas Trx4Ms in my opinion. Okay, now that we've got the spring on, you can see it's still got a nice dampening motion. It's not fully extending, but it's definitely sitting a little bit higher and easier than the other one did. Let's just see, compare it to the front one I did. This one's got a softer motion. This one's got a little bit more of a stiff motion due to the fact that the shaft was a bit further out when I closed the cap, which is going to allow for the extra weight that a person runs in the back of the rig. And of course, this one is going to go on the rear corner on that side, and this one's going to go on the front on this side, just to try and fight that torque twist that we have on these rigs. Okay, now that I've got these two done and I've explained exactly how I'm going to set them up. Okay, and on the two remaining shocks, I'm going to do exactly the same process. I'm going to set up the front one the same as I did the other front one, and I'm going to set up the other rear one the same as the other one. The only difference is that I'm going to run the soft springs instead of the hard springs. So, I'm not going to do this on camera. I'll be right back once I've got these done. Okay, now that we got all the shocks ready, let's get this body off. Okay, so let's start by getting the wheel nuts off so we can access the screws that hold on the shocks. Okay, and this is the shock with the hardest spring. I'm going to be fitting on this front side of the vehicle to compensate and try and help with the torque twist on these vehicles. Okay, so let's grab the stainless steel screws that they provide. Let's stick that in, and let's start by assembling this bottom one over here. Now I'm going to grab the shock that I set up for the rear, but the one with the soft spring is going to go over here. Okay, now moving on to the rear right side, which is normally the side that the vehicle wants to lean to when you're busy giving it acceleration. It likes to torque twist this way. This is the side where I'll also be putting the hard spring. Okay, so let's get that body on. And as you can see, immediately you can tell the difference of the level of the rig. It was always sitting fully extended in the front and completely compressed in the back. It already looks a lot better. Besides that, I can feel that the dampening motion of it is way better than these original shocks, and I'm pretty sure the articulation is going to be a lot better. As you can see, I'm getting a lot more travel than what you do with those original shocks. So as you can see, besides having a better dampening motion and more articulation, it is also definitely going to help for that torque twist, the way I set up the shocks by having the stiffer spring on this rear and on that front on that side. It just helps every time you reverse. It doesn't want to cave in as easily that way. And when you take off, it doesn't just want to do that because it becomes really annoying, especially on hill climbs and everything. It just looks a little bit silly. But in real life, that is what rigs behave like. So it is not unusual to have a wheel lift, and it does add to the realism when you're out playing with these little rigs. So these are the benefits of upgraded shocks on these rigs, and it's definitely worth the upgrade in my opinion. Normally, I always take it out for a little trail after I fit an upgrade. In this video, I am not going to do that. I'm going to wait to film the next upgrade video, and in that one, I will be fitting the new motor and transmission with the reduction gears. Like that, I know I can get some smooth running footage for you all, so you can actually enjoy and see how the new shocks and the motor and transmission will perform. So for now, all I've got to say is, if you like this content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And until the next one, happy trails!